Okay. So going back to I don't know if I changed. Let me. Where did my window go? Google Hangouts. There it is. All right, so we're recording. Okay, so back to me, you guys. So WordPress GitHub. So what you guys are going to be doing then is you are going to install WordPress to your development staging server. You should opt to install into a WordPress folder. Accounts for all team members. Okay. At this point in time, you will use the default theme to explore and install plugins to use according to your functional specifications. And then next week, you will start putting in the page tree and setting up the menu system. So for right now, then, actually, what you would need to do then is, so let's say this right here is your staging server, okay? These two down here represent the local development machines, okay? So if you have 4 team members or 5 team members, everybody, I said everybody, is going to have a local environment set up, and I'll show you how to do that today, okay? So basically what you're going to do is you are going to set up and install WordPress on in its own folder. So for instance, what I brought up a second ago on the other machine, realself.premiumdw.com. This is where I have password protected this domain. You can do that straight within the DreamHost panel. Okay. So you guys. So under, is it goodies, HT access, web, DAV, right? You can then, let's say, realselfpremiumdw.com, password protection, or you then have the HT access file that was written, right? So if I go back here then, that HT access file, I get in, here is then the WordPress folder installed on the staging server, development staging server, okay? Now, if I was working locally then on this, which I do have set up here, let's see, Real Self Trends. So here is then the local version of this one, okay? So that every time I am making changes to this, I was making changes to that, then I could push that to GitHub, etc. So I'm going to stop using this as an example right now, and instead use the example as this one, the wireframe premiumdw.com one. Okay, so this right here represents my staging server. Okay, now unfortunately I don't have this in a WordPress folder. So I did this before. I was really practicing that methodology pretty hardcore. But if I then go to MAMP, so I'm using MAMP Pro, Mike's 960 wireframe. If I open that up, you see that now the URL is Mike's 960 wireframe, colon, is that a colon or a semicolon? That's a colon, right? It's colon, thank you. 8888. So this is my local environment here. Okay, so if I then went to my projects folder, right, and it's not in its own WordPress folder, but I went to themes, Mike's 960 wireframe, and I opened style.css. This is where doing our comment testing quarter. So we'll use this as the same thing, okay? So this local environment, right? Now I'm using MAMP. How many of you got that? You're using the free version or demo version of MAMP. You had a question, Alex?
Yeah.
So MAMP is also available. Oops. I've never used it. So was that a question to me or to Faf? I've never used it. So MAMP, then you can download it for Windows. Now, if you want to use XAMPP, WAMP, LAMP, CAMP, CHAMP, FRAMP, STAMP, QUAMP, CRAMP, right? I don't care. I just don't care. All I care about is that you have a local environment. So yeah, what Bill likes WAMP, XAMPP, because he's on. Well, he's on the Microsoft, the Windows platform, right? Yeah. And MAMP used to not be available. It was Mac exclusive. Again, I don't care. I just don't care. What I do care about is that you are following this setup where you have some kind of a local environment that you can then preview your work in the local environment. So if you are using MAMP, not the Pro version, but the regular version, so here's MAMP Pro, here's MAMP, you would have to put your work in this htdocs folder, right? And Mark can help you out with that, right? You did it that way, it worked relatively well for you. Did you just like stick a project folder in here and it worked just fine? Right. And then you basically could just
do localhost and
your
folder.
And then you could basically go and then could you create multiple databases?
Yep.
Yeah, okay. So then PHP MyAdmin will work running here on the local 888 local host, and you can then set up your databases, right? Now, with MAMP here, MAMP Pro, I can do a one-click install of WordPress, but if you are working using the regular version of MAMP and you want directions on how do I do that whole setting up a WordPress thing, if you go to my WEB210,
downloaded and put in the root folder.
installing WordPress to your server. I do have the lecture here that you basically download it from WordPress.org, right? You can then put a WordPress folder in wherever you want to. Upload it to your server, or if it's localhost, and then get a database set up through here. Just set up a database. Then name it, connect to that database, right? And when you are connecting to databases in the local host environment with MAMP, typically your username and password is just root. Database name, user, root, password, root, localhost. I think I have to do :8889 for mine on MAMP. So if I were to show you then under project wireframe here, under my HTML, if I then opened up my name is root when I was screwing around with it. Database name, user, root. Your password's probably going to be roots. Localhost 8889, and that will connect to that database. And then when you go to WordPress, then remember who's experienced WordPress setting up, connecting to the database, and installing. Who knows what I'm talking about? Okay, so it'll connect to the database, and it'll start to install the tables into the database. Okay, so again, one way, shape, or form.
So all of us have this on our machine. So like, let's say we do something in the database. When we link it up to our the middle area, what's it called? Then it will upload it. Like it'll join with, like, let's say Rosie puts it up, and the next day I add something else and I put it up. It will combine the two together there.
No. So if you have a database on your staging server, you have databases locally here, you have a bunch of different databases, right? So make the one in your staging server your master database. And then, so you're going to do separate installs. There's going to be a WordPress install here on your server. There's going to be a WordPress install on each of the developers' machines, okay? Each with their own database. So, but when you go and start adding the pages into WordPress, like you did in my WordPress class, who was in my WordPress class? Okay, so if you are then going to do creating content with WordPress, creating your pages. Right? This again is where those pages are then going to have a numerical ID. So let the one on your staging server be the master one. So once you get your information architecture done, right? And you need to go and then set up those pages in WordPress and then set up the navigational menu system, right? Do it on the staging server, not your local one, okay? So that you can then export the database from the staging server into your local database the way I showed you the other day, right? So for instance, if this is my one on my staging server and I set up all my pages and whatnot, I could then go to tools. I could use the Migrate DB plugin, which is a pretty beefy plugin that you will use at the end when you guys are getting this on your client server. But for now, all you really need is to go to this export tool, export posts, pages, contact forms, media, download the export file, go to your local environment, put in the wrong password. Go to tools, imports, and import from WordPress, right? So import your staging server database into your local environment database. That's what you should do. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And then every now and again, you may have to re-import if there have been significant changes. Okay? That's the only way to keep your database synchronized that I know of. If you can find a better solution, please share, right? Okay, so in terms of this then, when you guys are working on things, right? For instance, if I have my okay, so here we are. Let's make some edits for our local files and push them to the GitHub. Okay, so if I'm working locally off my machine with the cloned repository, okay, so what you're going to have to do to get this theme cloned, right? So you've all of you have started a repository, correct? Okay, so you can see right now on this repository, wireframe, Adam Cozy is a contributor. So right now I have Diane Selvey and Adam Cozy as contributors, right? So if I wanted to add a contributor to this, right? So what the contributor is going to do is that contributor then, which is all of you guys, is going to clone, and you can clone by opening in desktop, okay? So when you clone and open in desktop, it's talking about GitHub desktop, okay? Which I'm not going to reclone my theme here, right? But let's see if so it will then put it on your hard drive somewhere. I'm not sure exactly where. You can then take that folder then that it puts on your hard drive and move that clone into your themes folder, okay? So essentially, this Mike's 960 wireframe folder in my themes folder on my hard drive is the clone from GitHub. Does that make sense? Okay. So I just closed the window I needed. Love when that happens. Let's see. Dude, I sign in. Sign in. Maybe that's what I didn't do earlier. Contributors. Settings, there it is. Collaborators. Oh. Guys, but you know. Are you a GitHub member?
Yes.
What's your username?
I think it's my first and middle name. I think it's Anna Kirsten. No space. No space. Yeah, that's probably me.
Did you upload a photo?
No.
How do I know it's you?
I just think it's probably me. I think
That makes me nervous.
Isn't it me?
I am relatively certain that these are.
That's me. That's me. That's me. My name is.
So I've invited you to be a collaborator.
Okay.
Who else wants to do this with me? Who else are the developers? Frankie?
Yeah, mine's BANAIE 606. There you go.
So I've invited you. You have to confirm.
You have to refresh the page.
All right. Who else? Russ. You guys. You guys. Shh. Say it again, Russ. Do I need to separate you guys? Seriously. That's you right there? Who's the one with the 3 ones? Who else?
Am I gonna need man installed already to do this?
No.
You can have me.
Mario?
Mario's going.
Finally, someone else with a picture.
Alex, what are you?
Okay, so the first letter of each word is capitalized with no spaces. It's the love handle.
The love handle.
There it is, Empire symbol.
Okay. So, everybody that I just added, go ahead and accept my invitation, and then here's what I want you guys to do. Go to clone or download and say, do all of you have GitHub Desktop installed?
Yep.
Okay, open up GitHub Desktop.
It's always open.
Okay,
Does everybody need the GitHub desktop? The whole-
yes.
Okay.
Yeah, everybody for your local environment is going to need MAMP or something like it, right? And then GitHub Desktop.
I thought we weren't using GitHub Desktop. We were going to use shell access.
Okay.
Oh, that's listed.
So, have you cloned it in desktop and did you in GitHub Desktop? In other words, you can see this in GitHub Desktop. You got it? Okay. So here's the thing, right? Let's see. I then, in brackets, I deleted some stuff. So I'm going to save this now. And when I go back to GitHub Desktop, it is telling me, so if I'm here at the last little bit there, I should then be able to say, I deleted Adam's and Diane's comments, okay? And then I say commit and sync to master. So now if I go back to GitHub, I should see on styles, CSS, I deleted Adam's and Diane's comments. Okay, now, you guys that have cloned it in desktop, in GitHub Desktop, Frankie, let's start with you, okay? So you should go and then I think you should select this right over here. See this last blue one there?
Yeah.
Okay, select that and then hit the sync menu button up top.
Okay. I just deleted Adam's comments.
Okay. So you should go, I believe, here and then say sync. And now go and then open the CSS file. So wherever you placed.
Yeah, there's nothing showing up.
Right. So now go to your hard drive where you downloaded the clone. Mike's wireframe, right. Now open up the CSS file, style CSS in your code editor of choice. Okay, now you see how those comments are gone and now it's synced?
Yeah.
Now what I want you to do is leave a comment underneath that line.
I'm doing the same thing.
Okay, good.
All at the same time?
Well, actually, let's do it this way. Frankie, do that. Save the file.
Okay.
Go to GitHub Desktop.
Yeah.
And push to GitHub with a comment.
Okay, so commit to master for that. Alright.
Yeah. So you made right now. Put in summary. Put in a comment. No, summary. and commit and sync to master. Okay. Now, if I go to GitHub and refresh, I should see your comment. Okay?
Surprise.
Surprise. Right? That's how you said it. Right? That's how you heard it. Totally. So now what I'm going to do is, so let's say you were working on something and you were like, hey, guys, I committed my changes of, I was working on this, whatever. Okay? And then I say, okay, I'm going to make sure I'm over here, and then I'm going to say sync.
This is relevant to everybody, not just the developer, right?
Yes.
This is how we upload our changes.
This is how your teams, in other words, pretend, yes, right? Pretend that if I were to visually explain this to you. Right now, this is me and Frankie working with the wireframe repository, and up there is representing the staging server. Okay? So now, if I go to back to brackets, surprise, what he just put in and uploaded to GitHub and I synced is now on my hard drive, because what's on my hard drive is a clone, not a copy, right? A clone.
But, you know, isn't a clone a copy?
No.
Okay.
I hate to ask this, but what's the difference?
So a clone is,
It's almost like a live document.
it's a live,
I understand that part, but
right. In other words, if you copy a tape and I give it to Mark, right? Or I burn a CD for you, and then of an album, and then I add one more song to that album. Do you have it on your CD that you burned?
what's the CD?
Shut up, you know what I'm talking about,
Yes,
right?
yes.
No, you don't,
In theory, I know.
right?
The clone still has a connection to its
Oh, I get
original.
it. The CD is a copy that you can modify.
So in other words, a clone will always have the complete, fuck it, I don't know how to explain it to you. It's a goddamn clone, and just get over it.
It's like a Google Doc versus a Word doc.
Correct. It's a master. It's an instance of you bringing up that Google Doc on your computer while Anna has it open over on her computer, and you guys are live editing stuff together. Yes. Okay. So now, Anna, do you have the CSS file open in your code editor? Have you synced yet?
I synced.
So you have to go all the way over to the last one. Now
I
sync.
synced. Well, I didn't, and then I did, and then I didn't. It synced. It was right there.
Excuse me, attitude.
Didn't
So,
you see it?
right, now open up the CSS file on your code editor. Okay, great. Now you leave your comment and push it to GitHub.
Hey, Mike,
Should see if,
so I have my comment ready, but when I hit send, it's a conflict maybe. I have a conflict with the file.
Yes.
Should I ignore that?
The sheet has spreadsheet hasn't been on yet. The conflict version.
So you're discovering, huh?
that's the fun of GitHub.
Yeah. Push it.
Well,
I have to commit it.
Yeah, commit it.
yeah.
Commit
So
and sync.
if you try to make an update without getting the most recent
Uh-huh.
updates, then you have a conflict.
Right,
So I gotta commit it.
right. So we'll take a look at conflict then. Okay, so Anna, did you push yours?
Yeah.
Did you push it real good?
Yes.
You
Salt
didn't
and
say
pepper.
that to
Wow.
Frankie.
Hey Frankie, did you push it real good?
I love that song.
Not anymore.
What are you trying to say? I'm a misogynist?
See Mario's comment.
So I'm going to go to GitHub and Mario testing, right? So, so there was a conflict. So if I go now and I go back here and I sync, okay, and then I go back to brackets, here is Mario's testing comments, and we, okay, I know.
We need a break.
Oh my God, no, I just need everybody to shut up while I'm recording and talking, is what I need. So, here's what I'm gonna do. I am gonna delete that. I am gonna delete this, because that is GitHub's way of saying there's conflicts in there. I'm gonna save, and I'm gonna go back to GitHub here, and I'm gonna say, I fixed the mother trucking conflicts. Shut up, you guys. All right? So it's syncing. Okay. Now we go back to GitHub here. I fixed the mother trucking conflict. Shut up, you guys. Okay. So if we go and look at style.css, conflicts are fixed. Did you ever leave a comment?
Yes, I did.
Did you push it to GitHub?
And I did that, and it showed up in my desktop
Did
thing.
you,
And
Anna,
what?
did you via GitHub desktop, did you leave your summary and commit and sync to master?
Yes, and I keep getting an error, so,
So let's do this.
and I think it's.
Sync failed. No. So now,
Well, I don't know how to do this.
Mario fucked it up on purpose so we could deal with this.
Okay.
There's a video.
So
Right.
now,
We were
I'm
talking
like-
about it. You're hearing yourself talking about how to do
Yeah,
it.
we have something to bring over? Did you have it open?
Right.
I don't really understand about it.
Yeah.
Okay, so now
I have
it's
an 8 all
still
day
open
and I'm
press.
sick and I'm just like, I'm whining right now. That's also gonna be on the video. This is good.
So in January, like, oh, that's
Okay,
what I did.
so now-
There we go.
But that being said, I thought that he wanted to do circle, but this is.
How about this?
You have to
So,
get exactly the same. Was where you have to have this, you have to not check. Don't really understand what that
That being said, like, sure, so and then you
I guess
get.
it's kind of same.
I'm not trying to get that good. That's fine.
Yes. Oh, yeah, I added.
Okay.
No. The GitHub.
That's.
Oh, you don't have a repository yet, right? So it's time to start with that.
So let's go back.
So just a tip to everybody, if you ever see that conflict message, don't push. That was just for example, that he did that. If you ever do that, you're gonna royally mess up everything.
You could like,
Yeah, because it just puts those lines in your file,
it merges the codes together.
but you like that CSS file, it just had like a bunch of dashes and stuff, and it breaks it. Like it
Oh,
breaks
so
your
I
file.
screwed it up? I fucked it up?
No, I'm just saying like, no, you did the example. For example, in real life, you don't ever want to
In
do
real
that.
life, you wait for another person to clear it,
Yes,
clear it.
and you sync before you make the changes. Yeah, so.
Why?
I
Because you have this as your
that didn't
default.
work. I didn't check that one.
Well, I don't know, I mean.
So I gotta have it. I already remember.
Oh, and the other part.
But it's a
Because you have Dreamweaver Central.
Oh.
Like you call it like mindful.
With this, you actually, well, you have any website, any some code that you have in this computer? Like WEB210.
It's one of those red bells, but it's, we have this for my old job.
Or let's do this.
Or maybe it's this.
Look for my.
But no, I could add like the repository is basically like all the
You check
files.
that?
Yeah.
Look at this. This is the month.
Okay, so we had some conflicts. We fixed them over on Anna's machine. And now if we go back to GitHub and we go back here, really, Anna?
What?
Really? Dude.
You know what, she's redirecting her animosity, she can't really get angry.
It's probably a different mic.
I can't.
I'm kidding. I told her to say that. So now now the conflicts are
I'm stuck.
adjusted, are corrected. I am going to sync again. Stop talking, everybody. I am going to sync again. And then after I do that, there's Anna's. There's two of Mario's. I'm going to delete one of Mario's. So the thing is, you guys still have to try to not work on the same file at the same time all the time, right? You still have to communicate with each other. Nike Network communicating with each other about who's doing what at what time. So sitting with each other in class doing it that way. So now I save this. I hit this. Right, there's the one I deleted. Deleted Mario's comment. Okay, now let's say that let's say, so I go to, I'm going to close that. I'm going to close this. I'm going to go back to visit site. So let's say we're all synced up locally, right? In other words, if I go and view page source and then go to the style sheet, I should see now that who did that?
I added that.
Oh, you did? Okay, great. So now let's say, how many of us were working on this? 4 of us? 3 of us? 1, 2, 3, 4 of us, right? So let's say now, great, we got all of our shit done, and now we're going to go into the internal review with Mike. So we need to make everything. So if I go to then my staging server here, whoops, wrong one. Everything. So if I go to my staging live one, right now, if I view page source and I go to the style sheets, this is all last quarter's. So instead now, what I need to do is I need to pull the changes from GitHub to the live server. Okay? Now this is, if we look at the drawing again, I need to log into my server via shell access and pull from GitHub. So before you can do that, you have to do the private public key pairing of GitHub and your server. So what does that mean? That was a rhetorical question. While I'm closing some. So there's my server. There's the view source of my server. Okay. So this is where then on GitHub, did I close GitHub? No, there it is. What I need to do is, if I go to my profile here and I go up under settings of under my keys. So here is my private public portion of the key for my PS16781 dreamhost.com. Okay? So what I need to do is, first and foremost, I need to, if you're using a Mac, you're going to use terminal, right? So you are going to go into your server using shell access, via command line. So that's where, under my users, Mike Sinkula has shell access to PS16781. Okay. I need to log into SSH msinkula at ps16781.dreamhost.com because I am on machine PS16781 dreamhost.com user msinkula with shell access, right? So when I try to do that, it's going to ask me for my password, my user password. I log in. Now I am in my server. So if I run the cd command, not the cd command, ls command, list shit, is that it?
LS space /LA.
So ls shows me, here's all the crap that's on my server. Is it showing me the key file, the folders? Probably not, right?
SSH key.
Well, the file permissions list, that might be where the keys are stored or whatever. Okay, so what you're going to do when you log into your, you have to make the private public key pairing. I'm not going to make a new set of keys right now. What I'm going to do is show you how. Okay, so when you get to this point and you're logged in, go to Thomas Wilburn, ITC 210 resources, EC2 WordPress and Git. Go down to, go down to authenticate the server with GitHub. So once you are here, you need to run this command with your email. It will generate an RSA encrypted 4096-bit key pair. Tag it with your email address. The utility will ask you some questions, but just hit answer. It will then do this random art thing, okay? I don't know why, to entertain the stoners, okay? So what you need to do then is keys come in two matching pairs, public and a private half. We're going to give GitHub the public half and keep the private half to ourselves. When we connect, those two parts will match up, etc. So what we need to do is then open your GitHub settings panel, choose SSH keys. Here I am, SSH keys. Go to new SSH key. Give it a name. I gave mine the name of my server that I'm on, okay? Then you need to copy the public parts in here. So what you're going to have to do then is run this command. It will then in the terminal window show you this. You have to copy that from the terminal window into that GitHub field. That then gives GitHub the public key pairing, okay? Did that make sense? Okay, so developers, try doing that, fuck it all up, and ask me and Mark for help.
What is for help is general help.
Okay, so let's get back to this then, okay? Milo.
So are only the developers doing that part?
Yes, you only need one key pair, okay? So between your server and GitHub. So going back here, between your server and GitHub. So who has the actual repository on their GitHub account? Show of hands. Okay. You are the person that is the owner of the repository. Like I'm the owner of the repository. Frankie, Anna, Mario, you were collaborators with me today. I'm the owner of the repository. I'm also the one that owns the staging server credentials, right? So that person is the person that should do that. Does that make sense? Okay. And again, if you need help, you know where my office is, you know where Mark is. Okay. Once you've done that, you want to then, well, we didn't talk about cloning the theme to your development server, did we? Yet. Okay. So you need to then clone the repository to your themes folder in your WordPress install. So let's assume you've installed WordPress on the wireframe.premiumdw.com server. So what you want to do here is you want to change directory cd wireframe.premiumdw.com. Mine is not in a WordPress folder right now. If yours was in a WordPress folder, you would need to type in the WordPress folder, right? Mine is in WP content Damn it. WP content. What's the next folder I want to go into?
Themes.
Themes. So here, if I then do another ls, it's telling me that I have Mike's 960 wireframe, Mike's 960 wireframe old. Okay, so this is where you are going to then, going back to Thomas's you need to clone the repo on your server. Cloning your theme into your themes folder. So navigate into your themes folder and run the command git clone git at github.com username Emerson Kula / repo name Mike's 960 wireframe. Theme name. This is where you can name, I would typically name the theme after my repo, but I don't want to overwrite my current clone, so I am going to say demo. Where? Repo name, that's right. So let's do this. Is that where your hand was up? Okay, so let's run that again. Git clone git at github.com MSINKULA Mike's 960 wireframe.get demo2 done. Okay, so if I want to ls, oh, it did the demo one anyway. So now I have those clones sitting in my themes folder. I can then, when I go into WordPress, activate that theme, and now it's up and running. Does that make sense?
What if the edit has the GitHub, but Rust has the.
Oh, you guys are totally fucked. No, you're not. They just have to work together, right? In other words, y'all have to sit together and Russ, it's your server.
Yeah.
So you're going to be the one that goes command line into your server, runs the commands, then you're going to copy that thing, give it to Thaddeus, and he's logged into GitHub, and he then pastes that into his key. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, we'll see. We'll see.
We'll help you out, right? So is this clear enough so far that you're like, oh, I can watch that video and ask Mike for help and Mark for help, and they'll get all this up and running some point here? Yeah? Okay. So now, I want to change directory into Mike's 960 wireframe folder, because that's where my cloned files live, right, from my GitHub repo. So I'm going to say cd, go into Mike's 960 wireframe, ls. Here are all the files of my wireframe theme, right? So the style.css one is the one that has changed. From here, this is where we're going to say git pull origin master. This is the command that now my server is going to go to GitHub. It's going to do the public-private handshake key pair, authenticate, right? We're going to do our secret handshake, whatever club we're in, the GitHub club. I have a passphrase on my key. I shouldn't have done that. You can just do a blank passphrase, right?
You have to write empty.
You just hit return, it'll do it. So now it is said 1 file changed, 9 insertions, 8 deletions on style.css. Okay. So now if I go back to the server, the live server, staging server, and we go back to the style sheets and we refresh, it now has all of our GitHub changes pulled. Okay. Yes, yes, because you guys know me. Okay, so that right there is this.
I love that thing. I printed out
Yeah.
my desk in my office.
So that's that workflow. Questions? Who followed along with that, mostly? Ish?
Yeah.
We have a video.
Got real specific.
Let's show it to you like this. So let's say, right, I'm then working on, so like what I was working on today. I am currently on my school theme. In my functions file, so Mark. Remember how I just did that new thumbnail gallery the other day for the typography assignments? Okay. Today I started looking into options to replace. So if we are on, so let's close some of this stuff out and show you just kind of real world what I was doing today and how this works. Okay, so let's say then I am wanting to replace . this gallery right here, which is a plugin that I'm using, right? And I've tried to get into the plugin and edit the plugin to feed these in newest slides up at the top. And I can't find where in the plugin, because it doesn't exist, feeding it. So I either have to do one of two things. I have to edit that plugin, and I run the risk of destroying that plugin, right? So anytime I need to do updates on that plugin, it's not a clone of the plugin from the manufacturer, which is something you generally don't want to do. Or I can write my own functionality, right? So today, what I was doing was I was testing stuff out while Anna and Mark were in my office talking about nothing. So if I then go to my hosts and here in MAMP, and I choose Students of Premium Design Works, and I launch that, again, here is my local version of my school website. Okay, and if I go to Web 160, photos, it looks different, right? So here's what's going on. In this one that's live here, if I go in and edit page, here's the short code for the plugin I'm using, okay? If I go in here, here is the short code, my Flickr album, which basically is my Flickr album. Here's the shortcode function in WordPress. My Flickr album uses the function my Flickr album, or get my Flickr album, the function get my Flickr album. Right now, I'm just echoing some JavaScript that I found online to display the latest one, size, the small square size for user for this set, okay? The only thing is, it is displaying the wrong size, and right now only giving me a minimum or maximum of 10 photos that I can display at a time. So it's not working for me right now, but nonetheless, I'm futzing with stuff. Well, let's say I got everything up and running and I wanted to launch this, okay? Currently, I have not pushed this to GitHub. So what I would do is, if it was up and running and done, right? Here is the stuff that I'm doing, right? So I can say testing my Flickr album, no, let's capitalize that, my Flickr album function, commit and sync to master. Okay, so now it is then, if I go to GitHub, so now that code is in GitHub, right? So I'm not done with it, and it's not ready to launch, but let's say it was, right? What I would do, and if I launch what I have right now, it's not going to break anything on my live server because it's just a function that, you know, I can either use or not, right? So what I would do then is I would go to terminal. I would say SSH msankula at ps16781 dot dreamhost.com.
That's the user you created on DreamHost to access the GitHub.
Yes. No, that is my user on GitHub, or my user on DreamHost. That's my main user that has FTP and shell access. Okay. Now I'm in my server. So again, if I, well, I'm not going to ls, but what I would do here now is I would change directory into sccc.premiumdw.com, WP content themes students of Premium Design Works. Okay. Now if I ls, hold on. Let me see what I did, man. Yes. That looks. CD, where am I? WP content themes. Students Premium Design Works. CD Students Premium Design Works. LS. There are my files. Right? So I've updated my functions file. Now I don't need to list my files out there every time I do this. I'm just showing you guys. So now I'm going to say git pull origin master, and I've already created the keys, right, and cloned the repo to my server. So there's a clone of the repo in my themes folder on my staging server, on my live server, right, staging server, whatever you want to call it, on my server, right? And I've already created the public-private key pair with GitHub. So now when I run this function, it's going to ask me for my passphrase. And I also put a new set of, so I might have to use the PHP Flickr stuff. So I put that into my themes folder, right? So now all that shit is so if I were to then go back to my page here, my gallery page that's currently live on my site, and let's say I was done and I wanted to replace this, then I could go in and edit page and go add that new short code to pull my Flickr album, update, view page, and now underneath my old feed, you're going to see that new one that I'm testing. Or up above it. Because I didn't use a return function, I used an echo function instead. Don't ask, it's a long story. Just know if you're using short code, don't use echo statements in your functions. You have to use return statements. Okay? But nonetheless, there's what I'm working on, right? And I can go back and edit this page, and that function is still going to be up on my GitHub, but you know, I can just delete that short code. But that's how I would work locally and remotely. So I'm not FTPing anymore. What I'm doing is I am always working when I'm testing new stuff, writing new functions, writing new CSS. I am always running all these tests now and all these new development, whatever I'm doing, on my local server through MAMP, right? And then pushing my changes to GitHub, this is what I mean by using a return, right? Instead of echo, right? Variable, add to the variable, return the variables. Okay. So, yeah. So now, instead of FTPing stuff and working off my live server all the time, right? I'm working on my local server on my hard drive, and then once I'm ready to launch it and pull the switch, git pull origin master, it updates my theme, and there I go, right? Now, there's always going to be work like, uh-oh, I have to then put that short code in there and that kind of stuff, right? So that's where, have you ever seen a website where it's down for a few minutes, we're doing maintenance and stuff? Well, I could very well just like put that temporary thing up, put in whatever I need to do and re-get it up and running. But in terms of code, putting the code on your server, you are then pulling that code, you are logging into your server via shell SSH access, and then going and accessing the repo on GitHub, your theme on GitHub, and it pulls it then to your server, and then it's up and running. And then you can always go back through. What if you totally screwed up, you know, and you want to go back to what you had earlier? Well, you can then go back and see your whatever you were doing before. So if I went to my functions, right, and then I went to history, I can go back to this one and reset it and sync it back locally and then push it back up to my server, right? Essentially, I could Command Z on some stuff. Does that make sense? So that's that in a nutshell is look at that, I'm on my local. I shouldn't be looking at this assignment locally because it's not there. This is a different database, right? Does that make sense? Right. But if I go back to my remote, my live, basically what we did tonight is this environment, this workflow. So, can you see the power of that workflow? Right? That is now, I don't FTP anymore for my school site, my personal blog, my Premium Design Works website, a couple others, that my wireframe one, some other stuff. I use this workflow instead. So it is really, Thomas opened a lot of doors for me doing it this way. Thomas, anybody know who I'm talking about? Thomas Wilburn? Anybody have a class with Thomas Wilburn a couple years ago? No? No, he is not teaching anymore. He's full-time down at the Seattle Times as a data journalist, JavaScript guy. So, any other questions? Was that relatively clear-ish, or at least, hey, okay, I see the synopsis, now I just have to get into it and do it? Who's already been doing this? Anybody?
I'm halfway here.
Yeah. So, all right. Okay, so.
In another class, we're using Cloud9 and doing Git pushes, pulls, like collaborative projects.
Okay.
But like, yeah, so it's like, it's not too alien to me.
Yeah, it's a similar, in what class?
This was advanced JavaScript a couple
Okay.
quarters ago.
So unfortunately, here's what I'm going to do, you guys. And I'm going to do this on video. Still recording. Repositories, Mike's wireframe. contributors. Settings. It's not that I don't trust you guys. It's just that I don't trust you guys. Anna especially.
That's Adam and Diane on
I know. I did eventually delete them though, didn't I?
today.
Yeah. I'm sorry. I understand how you feel, Anna. And all I can say is, Hodor.